welcome to Loki Sucks Dick, episode 6. Aaron, we made it.
I only cried a lot. Oh, by the way, if you need the perfect song to cry for to this episode, go listen to Isaac Danielson's Power. There you go. Just cry along to that. It's the perfect song for Sylvie and Loki's relationship. That is my gift to you, the world.
Now, there will be one more episode of this show where we're just going to kind of shoot the shit and wrap up, the overall thoughts. We'll likely watch through the series one more time and just do a final wrap-up cool-down episode. So, yeah, there will be one more episode, but this, much like the others, you don't have to watch in order. You can jump in anywhere. Last episode, we talked about finding your family in the queer section, and in the filmmaking section we talked about the story circle or the hero's journey, which got brought up in this episode a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, yes it did.
Feeling pretty smart for that one. Aaron, I like, comment, and subscribe to Montressor Media. Do you?
I do, in fact, and I do try to reply to people's comments. So if you do comment on our video, so long as it's not something like really offensive, I try to comment back.
Yeah, I think we try to delete those.
Yeah.
So I would ask that you watching would like, comment, and subscribe, and click that share button. I feel like that's the one people don't bring up enough. If you enjoyed this episode, share this out to your social media or to somebody that you think will enjoy it, somebody that you know loved Loki and might enjoy this.
And if you like this episode and you'd like to support us more, we do have a Patreon that helps support us queer creators on the independent content that we create. You can go see that at patreon.com/Montressor Media. For just $1, you get early access to all of our podcasts and our special podcast, So What Else, which is Patreon only.
I would also encourage you to join our Discord where you can continue the conversation with us. You can also follow us on our social media, which is popping up next to our names right now, I believe, if not below us. And finally, I have a question for you, viewer. What was your favorite scene of episode 6? And part B, what was your favorite episode of the series altogether? Which one landed as your top episode? I have my opinions.
Oh, damn.
But
damn.
Tough question, I know.
Tough question.
If you're feeling especially randy, rank the episodes in your favorite order.
Ooh.
I would have to think about that one. I need to watch through the whole thing one more time.
Maybe we'll do that for episode 7. We'll rank the episodes.
That's a great
idea. Rewatch them.
Great idea. I wish there was a way to open this episode as amazingly cool as the opening theme of the Marvel Studios going into the time stream.
That was so good.
Just
so good.
And this is why I'm so happy I listened with captions on, because the captions that were popping up was like a mix of stuff that we've heard in the MCU and then like real world like pertinent stuff, and just
Greta Thunberg was in there. I thought that was cool shit.
Nelson Mandela.
Was not expecting that in the finale of Loki.
And then the last MCU bit that we hear is Vision going, "What is love if not grief persevering?" Or what is grief if not love persevering? I knew I was going to mix that up. What?
And very fitting, truly fitting, because this. It's interesting to me how many people felt that the love story felt forced. The feedback to this episode has just been very perplexing to me, but the people that think that the love story was forced when Kate Herron was like, yeah, I wanted this to be a love story. I proposed this as a love story. That was the whole plan.
Yeah.
It's been very interesting.
I get it being polarizing, because this is genuinely some of the weirdest stuff we've ever had in the MCU. I get it's polarizing.
It's the most comic book-esque.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're really getting the feeling for who is not like an actual comic fan. Because the people that were like, wait a minute, they're not actually dead? Like, oh, my sweet summer child.
Yeah.
Welcome to comic books. I'm glad that you're here. The great thing about comic books is that your favorite characters are never truly dead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you're just sitting in the sidelines waiting until your favorite character comes back.
I just wish that I would get some Squirrel Girl. That's what I would wish for.
I would be shocked if that's not in the next 3 phases. I would be genuinely shocked.
I'm really surprised it hasn't been announced yet. Like, even to like TV to some, like, this format, these shows that are doing on Disney Plus will be very, very, very appropriate for that character.
Oh, absolutely.
But we digress from the point
right.
of the Loki finale.
So I'm very curious. I think you actually got to watch this episode before me. What was your reaction to that elevator door opening?
The whole episode, they set a really great sense of suspense.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that it's some of the best suspense that I've felt in a film recently, which is kind of sad because we have watched like some legit suspense films recently, but the suspense initially was pretty big.
Oh,
and like, and then when like the elevator doors open, you're like, wait.
Yeah, it almost felt like I had dreamt it. Like it felt. It really felt almost that familiar of that, like, this is almost exactly, if I were to, like, if I had known it was definitely going to be, and we're going to call him Kang. I know it's He Who Remains credited in the episode, that
makes the grammar of sentences very difficult.
Yeah, exactly. HWR. I feel like I'm just talking about one of the bushes at that point.
We're just calling him horror.
Yeah, horror. What? So if I had known for sure that Kang was going to show up, that is exactly how I envisioned that going down. Like, he's so nonchalant, and like you could tell he's been in that tower for way too long, and I was. I think exactly the payoff, especially after all the Mephisto business of WandaVision. Just, okay, perfect payoff. Perfect.
I really enjoyed it because I feel like, the acting was just phenomenal. Ooh. He hit it out the park. I think anybody that has been that is way too familiar with solitude, which is probably a lot of us after 2020 and 2021.
Right.
Very relatable sort of eccentricity, but like eccentric in that self-reflective sort of way when you've had too much time around yourself.
Yeah.
And it felt very true to form. It felt like, I've lived on my own a lot, and like I very much enjoy solitude, but there's like at a point where solitude drives me crazy, and like he really captured that. And just those very long takes where he's just going through these extremely, his dialogue needs to be very precise. Like the amount of acting chops to remember all of those lines, to deliver them properly, to do all of the acting. It's just stellar work. I really hope that he wins some sort of award for this because it was a great performance.
It'd be more worthwhile as Best Special Guest Award than Don Cheadle in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Did they watch the rest of that show? There are some serious contenders for acting awards next go around. Like, I made this comment last episode. Tom Hiddleston is an exemplary actor. I'm not trying to diss on him in any way, but he's acting his pants off in this, and everyone else is either keeping up or acting their asses around him. Owen Wilson has some times when he's better than him. Sophia DiMartino does. Jonathan Majors does. Fucking Richard Grant does. Like, so many of the fucking alligator Loki does. Kid Loki did. I think it was really great to see so many of these actors, and some of whom were like, old favorites and some of whom are less well known, who just came in and acted their pants off. I love how much this is about character.
Oh yeah, and the amount of time and dedication to giving each of those characters those moments to shine. Yeah. That means a lot. That really genuinely means a lot. That it's not like, hey, we threw in Kid Loki because eventually he's going to show up. They were like, no, he's here for a reason. He's here to do something. Like there's stuff in here to show you why he deserves to be around, and not just the inevitability of him being around.
And I think it's interesting because it's made me rethink one of the few complaints that I really had about WandaVision was the ending and how it kind of. It went to combat. It went to kind of CGI bukkake kind of stuff, like Marvel tends to. But now knowing how Loki ends, I think going into Multiverse of Madness, where I think Loki is pretty much confirmed to be in it now. It's this interesting situation where you've got Wanda coming out of this one type of love where, you know, she has almost a more traditionally masculine role where it's, you know, it was kind of, and I don't mean like masculine in terms of society, but masculine in terms of what masculine characters in media tend to be portrayed as.
Yeah.
You know, the way that she's controlling and manipulative, the way that she's protecting of her family, it feels more masculine, and it culminates in this physical like battle at the end. Whereas Loki has a more traditional feminine, you know, self-development, doubt, betrayal narrative that culminates in this philosophical battle. Both of those characters are going to come together, hopefully, in Multiverse of Madness, and I really hope there is some scene where they talk about love.
Oh, yeah.
The juxtaposition of those characters is just going to be phenomenal.
No, those are excellent points. And, like, I don't want to say it's almost too obvious, because, you know, obviously there's, like, thousands of people that work on this, but it's
yeah.
Is it maybe a little telling that Loki was basically generally made by women, and WandaVision was written and directed by men, and the way those kinds of things bleed into the work are obvious and interesting. Like, I'm not saying that as a diss at all, because I think both teams did killer jobs with what they had.
I want to actually, I realize that I misspoke. 2 of the episodes were primarily written by women. It is a mixed writing team, and from what I understand, okay, so you've got Bisha Ali, you've got Alyssa Karasik. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. I have not heard it pronounced in an interview yet. You've got Michael Waldron, Eric Martin, and Tom Kaufman. It seems like Bisha Ali was the executive story editor, and so Alicia Karasik has similar credits. So it seems like they did a lot of the more dominant roles.
Yeah.
And, you know, having a female director, having a female cinematographer, I really hope that Autumn Durald, like, she deserves awards for this. She deserves to... I want to see her direct for, like, you know, one of the big A24 directors. Like, I want to see, like, her... do some cinematography for Aster. I think that'd be phenomenal.
Absolutely. Holy shit, that would be amazing.
I don't know what I want them to make. Any film, it would just fucking slap.
Oh, absolutely.
But back to the original point, you can feel the femininity on this show. And in a lot of different ways. Like we had pointed out earlier, when Sylvie goes into combat, she like pulls her hair back, which I thought it would be really cute if Loki would do that at some point in time, but like we still have time for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I really like, a bold decision by the writers, not a popular decision by the writers, is most shows nowadays, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., a lot of times what they would do is, yes, it's multiple seasons, but each single season would be a self-contained arc for the most part. And that seems to be par for the course for like a lot of these multi-season shows. Most of the mysteries, or a lot of the mysteries, get cleared up at the end of the season. And that's not how TV was when I was a kid, you know? Like, I'm used to Deep Space Nine and like X-Files, where you had these arcs that just followed across, and like Lost, where the season finale of season 1 of Lost, I don't remember exactly what happens, but I'm sure that it asked more questions than it answered. And I loved that about the show. I love that the show is just like, we will not hesitate to throw the power balance on its head. It's great.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The absolute just insanity that they were able to throw into even just this last episode. Like if someone told me that they didn't really have interest in Loki, I would tell them jump in on the last 2 episodes. Really, maybe 3, because you can watch them like a Marvel movie. I think total it's like you could cut it down to 2 hours for the last 3 episodes. And I think weren't you the one that said that these are basically like duologies? They just put them out as 2.
Okay, so I was actually going to make a YouTube video that was basically going to say that WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki were basically just double feature Marvel movies split up into 3-ish pieces.
Yeah.
But I think the season finale of Loki kind of disproves that theory. Like, it's really not structured like any type of movie at the end. Most movies are not going to leave you with that many questions and that kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and I've seen some complaints that are like Loki asked more questions than it answered, and like
It's great.
what? Yeah, I guess if let's say that is the objective correct take. If Loki is just the prequel footnotes to what's to come, have you ever seen better fucking prequel footnotes ever in your goddamn life?
I saw people saying that this was anticlimactic. I was like, did we watch the same TV show?
Right.
My heart broke at the end because, I mean, it was kept a little ambiguous, but it definitely seems like Mobius and B-15 did not recognize Loki at the end.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Is Loki marooned in a different timeline now? Because he obviously got sent through the door after the timeline split started happening, and so based on the Marvel description for the page, it said that the oh god damn it, why am I of all the days for my stutter to pop out? Okay, I can do this. The Marvel description said that the pruning doesn't work anymore because of the split in the timeline. So that means a lot of the technology the TVA used is based on Kang's technology. So I would assume that means the doors don't work like that either. And so using a temp pad is essentially opening a doorway for Kang to just bust through.
Interesting. Like, we have no idea what the mechanics are going to be next season.
Yeah.
But to play into a theory that I had last episode, I want to point out that one of the interesting benefits so in season 1, Loki was Neo. He was introduced to the Matrix and he mastered it, basically, sort of. And then season 2, I was saying it would be really great if they kind of took a page from, some of the comics and had him lead a team. And right now he is the only person that is awake probably in this timeline, hypothetically.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like that Mobius and B-15 are just still believing the TVA lore or whatever it's called in Kangverse. And it's going to be, I think it would be really interesting if he awakens them and if he, like, last time Mobius kind of helped save him, and I think it would be great if he saved Mobius.
No, that's a great idea. That's awesome.
Yeah. I also, we'd mentioned this off air, and I have to mention it on the air. I think it would be fantastic if they had like B-15 at one point at the time be a Kang variant, because just when she was channeling Loki, that was incredible.
Yeah.
And I just think that she could carry it.
In Lovecraft Country, she is fantastic, and she plays I think she has one of the most intense episodes of the entire season. I won't go into spoiler territory, but it is worth the watch. It's getting a bunch of awards right now, and 2 of the actors have shown up in Loki, so we never know when the rest of them might jump ship over to...
I'm down with that. The show has a great cast.
Absolutely.
I think B-15 was one of the most interesting loopholes that was left by the plot. Like, her and Ravonna are just big question marks.
Yeah, they wrote that really well, that we don't know what she saw in those files, and all we know is that they came from Kang. So who knows what that means. She's on
a mission.
Yeah.
And I think that fundamentally changed her as a character. And that's something that we're going to get into in the queer themes section, because I have some really important things to say. I did not expect her to fit into my queer themes section as well as she's going to.
I know.
I'll just leave that little bit of a hint. I want to point this question to you, but also to the audience as well. Which character's development are you most interested in seeing for season 2?
That is an excellent question.
It's a hell of a question to hit somebody with.
Yeah, so I think, I'm most excited to see what happens with Sylvie next, just because of what happened in this episode. Some of the story arcs that we mentioned in our last episode, the way
Yeah.
that they've played out so far are super, super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Renslayer, like that's an arc that we're going to be tracking across probably this entire phase, if not the next 3 phases. If they decide to do the same structure as the last 3.
Yeah.
That big asterisk on that. They could change things up entirely. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, Renslayer's definitely up on my list. So that brings up a question that I had was, a lot of people are reading the end of the series as a series of betrayals, and my take was that it's been a series of non-betrayals.
No.
So to what you've been saying, Sylvie, as we know, her entire existence has been built upon the idea of breaking this system, right?
Yep.
That is what she has wanted from the beginning. That has not changed by the final episode. So we know that is...
It's her Moby Dick white whale.
Exactly. And there's a line where she says, "Why aren't we seeing this the same way?" Well, the answer to that is Loki's character development has been based around the idea of like being able to change himself and better things. And so the idea that Kang has this like operation to keep things in order, and that he will lose all of this stuff that he's changed, all the opportunities to make himself better. He's going to lose all that.
Yeah.
I think, and also because of the same person, both of us have been bringing this up since the very first episode. The unique aspect is they are both technically, according to the MCU rules, the same person. So,
but I love how much they brought up their differences in this episode too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fact that they're the same person and they want to absolutely different things, that's the split in their character. And I think even she uses that line of like, "But I'm not you."
Yeah.
So I think that was this episode saying, "Hey, I know we've been telling you they're the same person, but she's been informing us that she's not Loki. She doesn't answer that. She's Sylvie, and this is the doubling down. Like we can now think of them as split characters."
I would even go so far as to say that as a gender fluid character, that Sylvie has changed her name, something that's very true to the queer experience. She has found something that is more fitting for her. She's found an identity that fits her. And I think one of the interesting things about this show is that it's just really shown how much different circumstances impact people. Like,
yeah.
I think people would like to believe that no matter what happens, you're always going to be you. But everybody is just a product of the things that happen to them and the people that they surround themselves with.
Yeah.
And this show really demonstrates that in a big way, which is one of the things that I love about it. I love how much they really made each different Loki feel like an entirely different character. Like, yes, they did have a lot of common themes and elements, but like a lot of the motivational things, a lot of the developmental things were different because of how their life experiences, how they were raised, were different, you know?
Yeah. That's probably one of the like more heady esoteric questions of this series, right? Is like, if there's infinite universes and infinite variants, and all those variants can look these different ways and have these different variant personalities in them, aren't we all...
Who are you?
Yeah, aren't we all kind of a variant of each other? Like, there's a universe where I'm Loki. There's a universe where Loki looks like me. The possibilities are literally endless, and I really love that kind of the question at the end of the day is, if all these characters treated each other like people, as people, because you should see yourself in people if you can't see anything else, and that should be enough reason to treat people well. I feel like that's just kind of the question at the end of the day is, well, why aren't you? We've just proved that
genetically.
Yeah.
Genetically, humans are like 99.9% similar. It's really only a very, very tiny percent of our genetic code that is different in any way, and we really beat the death out of those freaking minor differences in a way that is perplexing to me.
Yeah. I like that this series wasn't afraid to go there as like a base kind of like the nebulous void of question underneath. I don't think it may be directly approached in future seasons. I hope it is. But if it's not, it still just feels like, yep, that's the underlying idea here, isn't it? Would you mind a trip to the sillier side with me for a minute?
Not at all. I like silly.
So and the timing for this was maybe a little uncanny. Ryan Reynolds just put out a video of him as Deadpool doing trailer reactions on his YouTube channel. And the most recent one involved Korg. The reason being Taika Waititi and Ryan Reynolds both have a movie coming out called Free Guy. That's why that happened. But the internet's take has been Deadpool's officially MCU canon.
Love it. I'm down for it. When's he going to show up?
I'm fine with it. I would raise you that this episode laid the groundwork for that to happen.
This episode really laid the groundwork for so many things to happen. I love the fact that basically the multiverse has been opened up in a bunch of different, like, WandaVision had it open in one way and Loki has it open in another way. And like, so these shows can all, these characters can all interact in the multiverse, but yet still have their own little universes that are separate and don't involve each other.
Oh yeah.
And I think that it opens up so much potential. I would love to see them do a spin-off show that is just like a couple of Lokis, like classic Loki and alligator Loki. Them two just like together.
An old man and his alligator.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. There's two fourth wall breaks in this episode that made me think that they're laying the groundwork for Deadpool. The first is literally text in the film. I don't mean like what the actor said. Kang hands them the script.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Now that totally works for his character and for what was happening. That's also like whole ass just a Deadpool thing for him to pull out the script of whatever he's in and look at it. And it might seem silly.
And that's coming full circle from the beginning.
How do you mean?
Because Loki, when he was originally arrested by the TVA, got a list of everything that he'd ever said.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I know people might think it's silly to think that the two are in any way related, like a one-off joke in a Deadpool movie versus Kang, he that remains at the end of time pulling out the script. But at a base value, it's exactly the same joke. But then
pretty much
the other fourth wall break, and you can argue with me in the comics if this was or was not a fourth wall break. I'm pretty solidly going to say it was. The post-credits, mid-credits, whatever you want to call it, the announcement that Loki 2 is coming.
Yeah.
The credit sequence in Loki is stuff
it's
from...
so good.
Yeah, it's excellent. Actually, I've loved all of the post-credits things that they've put together so far. I wish they didn't make up 10 minutes of every episode, but what can you do?
Yeah.
But the TVA stuff is like real. It's canon to the episode. The stuff that we're seeing at the end credits there is stuff that is in the show. So for that to play out and then for it to end on Loki's folder and have someone physically stamp it and say Loki season 2 as in a TV show is coming, that the hand stamping that might as well have been a red and black glove with Deadpool stamping it. That is an in-universe nod to the fact that this is a show. That's my silly rant. That's how and I'm not saying Kang's gonna like conjure Deadpool in. But I think literally this episode is saying the door is open. Any universe, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe, the Sony Venom Mobius universe. It's the cartoon Into the Spider-Verse could technically be one of those branch universes.
I just want to see Spider-Gwen show up in the middle of fucking Loki. That'd be phenomenal.
She's like the next most marketable thing to do. I would be shocked if that's not in the shoot already.
I'm surprised they haven't done more with her or like Gwenpool or something like that.
Yeah.
Like she is such a popular character, at least like amongst people that I know. And like when I go to comic cons and stuff like that, I feel like there's a lot of people wearing her merch and like buying her merch and stuff like that. I don't understand why she hasn't really gotten as much attention, especially with as like Gwenpool, especially with as popular as Deadpool has been. Seems like a obvious one.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to view everything going forward as it's presented in the MCU, except for Black Widow, as this, unless otherwise stated, this is the starting off point for every next movie, every next series. Multiverse of Madness, like you've been saying, the next Spider-Man movie definitely is going to be feeling the effects of this.
Ant-Man,
100%. I mean, Kang's already been confirmed for Ant-Man, so like,
yep.
We see a lot of this stuff coming down the chute. I would be surprised if the Deadpool movie didn't take Deadpool 3, whatever it is, whatever they name it, doesn't take full advantage of that and bring in Gwenpool and bring in, you know, what's the Deadpool dog?
Oh, I remember.
There's like a whole family of Deadpools in the comic at one point.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if they, because Deadpool's the place to lean into the silliness of all this and not have it have gigantic stakes.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I was really afraid that they were going to do with this show that they didn't was just like mistaken identities and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Like one Loki trying to be another Loki. I'm really glad that they didn't go a lot of the like cheap or easy directions that could be gone when you have a lot of characters that are basically the same person.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, because while a lot of those gags do have their like time and place, I find that more often than not, like mistaken identity and stuff like that, it just annoys me more than I find it interesting.
Sure.
And I'm glad that they really didn't go into any of the like danger zones that I had kind of established, like things that I really didn't want to see. Like as much as like Sylvie's quote-unquote betrayal, because I don't really think it's a betrayal, I just think it's her being true to her character and not having grown yet.
Yeah.
So I saw something in the credits, a certain actor's name. Do you feel like we got enough Casey in this episode?
I think it's time to retire that one. I may have jumped the gun. I may have been a little too excited for a side character. No, there was not enough Casey, and I don't think there ever will be enough to make up for the loss of the last 4 episodes lacking Casey.
Yeah, I felt like he was a really great character. I'm really hopeful that since we're ending up back at the TVA again, that we're gonna get him next season. But
what if next season's Casey is just totally different and we don't like him? That's what scares me the most.
But what if he's like got his muscles out and everything?
I mean, okay, full himbo Casey, I'd be okay with. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
I would be very okay with that.
I don't think they're going to ruin Casey for us. Casey was something special. For us, at least. I guess for nobody else. I like hashtag everything, like when we're posting stuff online, and the Casey hashtag just has nothing. Like the Sylvie and Mobius and all those hashtags have like hundreds of millions, and there's like a couple of tens of thousands of Casey hashtags, and I'm like, are you serious?
Well, we're part of that small group, and we're just going to have to
Yes.
unite with those people, because
I know.
I just want more Casey in my life. That's all.
Eugene Cordero, like, just be our friend. We love you.
He's just so
You're
wonderful.
great in everything. You were really great in the King Kong movie. Fucking what's it
Skull
called?
Island. Kong Skull Island.
Skull Island, yes. Great in Skull Island.
Another Tom Hiddleston movie.
The filmmaking on this was fucking spectacular, as per usual.
Yeah, I mean, you dropped us in with a spinning shot in the opening. Actually, I might try to sync up all 6 episodes with their rotating shot.
I love those spinning shots.
It's such a great. It's a very accessible visual metaphor of like, hey, things are getting turned on their head.
Yeah.
And so like I get it, but when you do it repeatedly as a motif and it's something that is baked into the idea of what you're doing, I think that's excellent.
Yeah.
Just the consistency is what impresses me, I think, more than anything.
Yeah. I think this is one of the things that I've been asking for this on, a Film Rescue Show is our show where we talk about movies that like maybe had opportunities, maybe they sucked or whatever. We talk about them, what they did wrong, and we try and come up with a way to fix them. And one of the things that, I complain about a lot is I feel like filmmakers have just gotten, I think they either don't, I don't want to say that they don't try or they're not like being creative or things like that. I just feel like realism and trying to make even hyper-realism, CGI that looks more real than realism can be, is just so popular right now.
Yeah.
And I love when you do things with cameras that the human body and the human eye can't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just very visually compelling to me, and I'm asking for it all the time. I'm always asking for surrealism. I'm asking for stylism. I'm asking for like unique aesthetics, and this show just delivers it in spades. It's like literally stylistically something that I've been asking for so long.
Yeah, I think they're so good at recognizing the subconscious link between what we see as we're watching something and how the camera is executing that to us. You can put a flat camera on a theater play and have a amazing story and great acting and great blocking and physical acting and things like that. But there is an element of just the way that it communicates stuff to us and the way that we receive that. The spinning camera, this episode, I don't know this for certain, but there was a couple times where the camera would push in between Loki and Sylvie onto Kang as he was telling a story and then pull back out. It happened, I think 3 times. It might have just been 2. But every time it happened, I recognized that it was happening, and I recognized that Jonathan Majors was pushing his hand out towards the camera as it was coming in, like reaching out to connect with you. And then as the camera would pull back, he would move back in his seat. And that communicates... actually, that might be a good question. What did that communicate to you, or what does that communicate to you as you're watching it?
So I think that the when I was seeing the push-ins and push-outs, especially the last one, it felt like shifts, like big shifts in like the power dynamic and the understanding.
Yeah,
like it felt like those were the points at which things changed.
Yeah.
You know, the points at which there was new understanding. I think the point at which, I think that final push was when Loki was like, oh, I believe this guy.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, it was almost like their reality changed. Their reality shifted.
Yeah. Something that I've noticed just kind of across watching movies is it wouldn't be a natural camera movement to push in on Kang if he was lying, unless we knew as the audience that he was lying. You would push in on somebody that, hey, we know this person's lying in this moment, and we're making that more intense. But because as an audience we don't know if he's telling the truth, I read that as the camera telling us, this motherfucker's telling us the truth about all this right now.
Yeah, there was definitely the camera motion added weight to his words.
Oh, yeah.
In a way that I don't really know how to explain.
Well, and that was the major part of this, Jonathan Majors part of this that I wanted to bring up that we haven't got to talk about. We have sporadically across the episodes, but I want to highlight in this filmmaking segment is acting. That shit's real fucking hard, and people that make it look easy are performing miracles. I mean,
for real.
You can speak from experience. You've acted in stuff before.
Not well. Remembering all of that dialogue, delivering it exemplarily, just matching your motion with the camera motion. Both Loki and Sylvie had actions that they needed to be doing. Both Loki and Sylvie were mirroring one another's actions for the majority of the scene.
Yeah.
So you just have so many complex moving pieces in that scene. As you know, as a director, the more things you have in motion in the scene, the more difficult it is to direct it. And I really love that Kate Herron was just like, fuck it. Spiraling camera, I can take it, you know, like these punch-ins, these punch-outs, these long shots, these like this very almost invasive, almost it feels like a covert agent spying around at times. I loved that camera work, and I loved the boldness that it takes to be like, yes, I can do this and I can do it well.
Yeah. Exactly. There's this saying in editing circles, which is a good editor can make a bad actor look great.
Yeah.
But a great actor never needs an editor. And that is on display hard in this episode.
Yeah.
Not only I think overall there's a thing in film where you can measure some form of liquid quality of a movie by how long the average shot length is across a film.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not a universal thing.
Movie.
Some things are cut very quickly and are very good. Some things aren't. But in general, if a film or TV show in this case, I mean, these are TV shows are bordering on films at this point. If I say movie, I mean both of these things.
Pretty much, yeah.
If the average shot is longer than 2 or 3 seconds, that's a good sign. And this episode, some of the shots were 2 and 3 minutes plus of just actors acting, and that is bordering on impossible to do unless you have a great director and a great cinematographer that understands what's happening in the scene and great actors that can engage you that way. And Jonathan Majors popping in this cameo, stealing the show with these long, verbose, technical dialogues that he turned into these like sing-songy, just full of character, like everything.
Oh, he was so good, and his costume was amazing too.
Oh,
I have to credit for that. Like everything about his aesthetic, his delivery, his lines, everything about it was perfect.
That look by the lake, just the way he would pop words on purpose, and just everything about that performance. If you've ever in your life like wondered what makes a good scene of acting versus what makes a bad scene of acting, go back through the Kang stuff in this episode. I could not find a misstep in his performance at any point, especially in the long takes. And that's kind of it for this part of the filmmaking segment, or for the highlight of it anyways, was just and they even did it with Loki and Sylvie. The shot leading up,
God, that kiss scene,
the shot of the kiss is like 2 minutes long before they even
it was so good too. And they got their own little love theme, and I think the way that was handled was really important. And it's frustrating to me because I felt that this is where I think text versus subtext becomes important.
Oh yeah.
I feel like everything about the subtext of that scene was screaming that Sylvie did love Loki.
Yep.
But that love is just not enough sometimes. Like, here, like, great example, complete real world example. Say you and I are in love and you desperately want a baby and I don't want a baby. Our needs are going to be inherently not the same.
Right.
Like, no matter how much I love you, that's not going to change that. And until her need changed to something other than revenge or breaking the system, she wasn't in that position.
Yeah.
And I think everything about the subtext of that scene was meant to convey, this is real.
Yep.
But it's not ready yet. Or sometimes you love somebody, but it's not the person for you. Like, just because you love somebody doesn't mean that you're going to end up together. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, sometimes you date somebody and they are like the best person for you as a friend, but are completely incompatible in a relationship. And I felt like the subtext of this just did so much to say that. And it was really beautiful. And like, this is everything that I watch, for the most part, I have to stop and start. I have a very short attention span. I have really bad chronic pain. And this is one of the few shows that, like, pretty much every episode I've watched the entire way through without stopping. The first episode I stopped and started because I was taking a lot of notes. And then, like, afterwards, I'm like, I really just want to enjoy these episodes, and I'll take notes like the second viewing.
Yeah.
And just so many things about the filmmaking are so subtle but so well done.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, I think this show could be analyzed for months, if not years. I think we could still be analyzing it when the next one came out. And I love that about it. And God, does it frustrate me to see people on the internet say that Sylvie manipulated him and kissed him so she could take advantage of him deliberately, which did not feel like the scene at all.
Yeah.
People that say like, oh, there was no climax, or there was no character development. Oh my God, that one killed me. So specifically with Sylvie, that's kind of the point with Sylvie.
Yeah.
Is that like everybody else got character development because she wasn't like in the right environment, and she wasn't committed to her own self-healing. She was just on her mission. She hasn't got there yet. And I really hope that Sylvie, either through season 2 of Loki or through her own thing, because I mean, maybe she gets a movie or a TV show of her own, who knows?
Sure.
I really hope that she gets some sort of a redemption arc. But there's like 2 ways that I think that they could go with the character. That's a topic for the queer theme section. We'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah, I think you summed up the metaphor, the 2 metaphors that you used with, outside relationships, pregnancy or dating.
Yeah.
I think those are exactly why the betrayal is not betrayal to me, because it's not a betrayal to be incompatible.
Yeah.
And that's what we've learned is like they're very compatible like as people together, but they're situationally not compatible. And so it's not a betrayal to need the thing you need. Like, they might have to split to figure things out, but I'm really having a hard time getting on the betrayal train for this one.
Yeah. And I think that in so much as Loki's intent was to protect Sylvie, I think in some ways Sylvie thought she was protecting Loki.
Yeah.
Because I think she thought that for many, she thought that, she didn't have free will, and that she had gotten free will, and, gotten free will for herself and for Loki.
Mm.
And then only to find out that it's probably a lie.
Yeah.
And I think that knowledge that I think that she believed that it was the best thing to do for both of them in a misguided part of her heart that just cannot evaluate the situation rationally, because so much of her life has been fucked up because of the TVA and everything like that. Who knows what she could have done? We still don't technically know that her Nexus event was falling in love with Loki. Like, there might have been something else. Like, it seems like everybody else was pruned as a result of doing something. What did she do as a child?
And something that we have said across this series that I think just the point was driven home in a way that I was like just writing it down as a W for you and I. Loki's not the main character of this show, and that went into full text in this episode when Kang goes, "And you, Loki, the flea on the dragon's back," and I was like, "That's fucking right." But even before he says that, Loki and Sylvie bring it up before they enter the castle. The line, in the initial line is, "Are you going to tell me not to kick in the door?" Sylvie says. And Loki replies, "It never made a difference." And then shortly after that, Loki says, "I have nothing to say." And Sylvie says, "Well, that's a first." And it's like, oh yeah, and then she goes into, I've been at this mission since before you were even alive. So like this is my thing, and so the episode just kept driving home. Like, this is Sylvie's story, isn't it? It definitely is.
It was basically, I think that scene with the door. It was like it was basically them acknowledging that he had changed. He had learned about her. He had recognized, when his behavior was going to make a difference and when it wasn't, and it changed accordingly. Sylvie's not there yet. I think Sylvie is a character that has a lot of potential, and I think that her arc in whatever she's in next is going to be really interesting.
100% agree. Segueing into the big queer themes, you were just talking about the similarities between Sylvie and Mobius, and I thought it was really unique how Mobius is to Loki what Loki has been to Sylvie. However, Mobius was maybe in some way successful in converting Loki into being a better person, the person that he sees him as. I think it was the 4th episode where he said that. And we haven't seen that change in Sylvie yet.
No. And I think, Sylvie, a lot of times when she's not around Loki, she's off screen. We really don't get to see her as like a primary narrative character very often. And I hope that is something that changes. I would not have wanted to see, I wouldn't have wanted to see Sylvie just get fixed by Loki.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I think that really, in some way or another, her mission had to have been achieved or had to fail spectacularly in a way that she couldn't continue it in order for anything else to happen in her life. I think when you get that obsessive about something, literally nothing is going to stop it. I mean, it's a Moby Dick level of obsession with her. And I think that's important to understand. One of the things, and I think the big queer theme is going for this episode is just cycles and changing those cycles, because a lot of times queer people are in cycles that do not work for them. Either we've been the victims of abuse, either from our families or from our relationship partners or from our friends, or we just didn't have great models of queer behavior, so we're kind of just doing compulsory heterosexual stuff. A lot of those things, you get in a cycle and you do behaviors not because they're the right behaviors for you or because they're what you want to do, but because they're all you know, or they're an obsession because that's survival has been your focus for so long, and you get so focused on just being able to survive as a queer person that you don't necessarily have the ability to focus on, okay, well, what about self-improvement? When you're just trying to figure out things housing arrangements or insurance or, any of the number of things that queer people struggle with, you don't necessarily have time to work about growth or development and things like that, especially if you really haven't had other people in your life to nurture you, if you don't have access to therapy, if you're not financially well off. There are a lot of queer people who are just Sylvies, who are just getting through life on survival mode because that's all they know, that's all that's accessible to them. And, until they get through that survival stage, they really can't grow and develop.
Yeah. The risk of being true to yourself is getting stuck in a cycle.
Exactly. And, I think especially compulsory heterosexual behavior is one of those things can be I think confusing to a lot of queer people. I don't think you don't realize that you're doing it.
I've got my hand raised over here. Could you explain what that means?
So basically that's when you're queer. Oh shit, sorry, my microphone started to attack me. Basically that's when you're queer, but you do hetero stuff because that's what you think you need to do. For me, it was, or because that's what society makes you do. Sometimes it's internally motivated, sometimes externally. For me, it was dating the straightest men possible because as a disabled person, living in the United States, health insurance and stuff like that is a primary need of mine, a survival need or things like that. So until fairly recently, gay marriage was not a thing. And in order to get insurance, you needed to get married. So, being in hetero relationships when I would have probably preferred not to be in those hetero relationships because there were other people that weren't dudes that I was happier with.
Sure.
It's also things when you have a queer partnership, but they still have I wear the pants in this relationship, or, she's the dude and she's the chick. That kind of stuff is all compulsory heterosexual behavior. And I highly recommend, if you're not familiar with it, look into it, because I feel that most queer people even the ones that are informed on their behavior still kind of do hetero shit just because we feel like we have to.
Yeah. Do you think there's a link between those kinds of things and then like questioning your gender identity, and do you think those like get
Definitely.
interlinked when you start to think about them? Because like when you start to run down the route, like speaking from I guess my personal experience, when I run down
Yeah.
the rabbit holes of masculinity, and question like, do I like this thing because I'm being told I should or because I genuinely do? I could see those kind of thoughts
Yeah.
spiraling into, do I act this way because I feel compelled to by heteronormativity, or because that's something that just is something about me?
Oh boy, is that something I can comment on heavily as a non-binary person. I did not realize there's this website. I want to put it on screen. We're gonna make sure we put it in the description. It's genderdysphoria.fyi. It just goes over a bunch of different types of dysphoria, and I had a lot of them, and I didn't realize. I didn't realize how much things like, just like the way women get treated in conversations, or people that are perceived as female, because they don't identify as female, get treated in different conversations can be different than the way people that are assigned male or perceived as masculine can be. Like society, like there's all of these studies about how like women are more likely to be complimented on things that are superficial, like their physical appearance, whereas men are more likely to get complimented for things that they've done or their ideas or things like that. Then things like, I work in IT, and I was for a while, like a lot of times, one of the only AFAB people that was in a group assigned female at birth. So a lot of times there was this weird pressure when I was hanging out with my male coworkers that I would hang out with their wives because I wasn't a guy, even though when we hung out at work, I was one of the guys. It was just like there's just these like weird ways that like society kind of puts that pressure on you, and when you start thinking about those things, and when you start thinking about how ridiculous they are and how they're completely societal constructs, there is no difference between my ideas and the ideas that come out of a guy's brain. Like you really start disassembling other things, like, well, why do we dress the way we do, like why do we follow trends, like why do we do this, why do we live in nuclear families, why you really, the more I feel like queer people, because you start out questioning something that you're told is very true from a very young age, like you're going to like men and you're going to be a woman, like you're told those things and you're like, I don't know. And like when you question things that are like that base level assertions about yourself, and you also question how society has like interpreted that, you really start to not care about a lot of other societal things. Like clothing, I just wear whatever the fuck I want. I do not care about trends. I do not care if I look ridiculous. I want to be happy and I want to express myself. I love that freedom. And one of the metaphors that I think that can apply to this show is when a queer person is getting away from compulsory hetero behavior and is going into this new world of being surrounded by queer people that are informed in a different way and think about things a different way, and things like that. I think it's an interesting parallel that can be drawn, and one of the things that I was thinking about while I was watching the episode.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's that's a rabbit hole I don't think that ever ends. Like I think
No.
especially you and I, who are kind of naturally inquisitive and naturally questioning people, I don't see that ever stopping, which is kind of scary to some degree, but also kind of freeing to know that I'm never going to be stuck in one version of myself for very long.
Yeah, I love, that's a great theme of the show. Just that, like, it's never too late for self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Loki is a fairly old character, and Sylvie is obviously older,
Yeah.
what they've said. And, if Sylvie does manage to have a redemption arc, it does say big things. Because I think one of the things that frustrates me about, I consider myself to be fairly in touch with Gen Z. I love internet culture and stuff like that. I love TikTok, love that shit. And in general, I support Gen Z. One of the things that I feel that it's a little off base is this belief that if somebody did something bad 10 years ago and they have not shown any signs of doing that behavior since, like, they've changed. Like, I definitely feel like there's some people like Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson that like say they changed and they haven't. Like, I get that. Those people suck. But we need to be more accepting of redemption arcs of people in our own lives. And we need to believe that those things are capable, because that belief makes people who need redemption actually be able to go through it.
Yeah.
Go through with it. Having other people that believe that you can be something better. Loki having Mobius and having that influence who believed he could be something different.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Those are all great points. I think that not having that is such a detriment, because self-awareness feels like an internal thing, but a lot of self-awareness stems from finding out how other people view us and how that parses with how we view ourselves. And then from the other side, if you are looking for someone to go on their redemption arc and believe in that for them, there might be an element of you and needing to impose that on them so that you can believe it in yourself. Like, I guess I'm saying it's a cycle.
Yep.
Hey, it's a cyclical, like self-feeding,
It's almost like
Ouroboros of a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, there are so many points about cycles, like that whole thing with Sith, literal cycle.
Yeah.
Right quick of learning and improvement and things like that. And I love that self-improvement is such a theme, that because, a lot of these shows kind of portray, sometimes you get these heroes or these just characters in general that is like, oh, this hero is flawed, but they're a hero, so we just accept their flaw. Like Batman, where is Batman's self-improvement arc? Like, where's the Batman actually goes to fucking therapy and gets a grip?
There's this wonderful show on HBO Max, the Harley Quinn show cartoon. I think it's just called Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I think so. I need to watch that. I've heard it's really good.
It is excellent because it is like they aged up the old like Saturday morning cartoon versions of Batman and Superman that you and I know and love, and they just aged up the humor, but the animation style is almost identical, and so it gives you that feeling of like, I feel like I'm reliving my nostalgia, but it is directly aimed towards, stuff at the moment. And all this set up to say that there's a joke where the Joker points out that he pre-ordered one of Bruce Wayne's electric cars, making a poking jab at Elon Musk in the real world. And I love the idea of a Bruce Wayne that like comes to his to the realization that like, hey, maybe I'm the one that needs to change for Gotham to change.
Yeah. And to tie it back to all of the like religious symbolism and all of the things that I've been alluding throughout this entire episode.
Yeah.
I think Sylvie's character can go one of two ways. So in the Bible, you've got two people that primarily betray Jesus. So you've got Judas Iscariot, who like sells him out to the Roman guard, and then Jesus dies, which is bad because Jesus dies, but it's good because salvation for the world, assuming you're Christian, and that's what you believe. Then you've got Simon Peter, and Simon Peter denies Christ. What is it? He denies Christ three times before he denies Christ
three times before the rooster crows. Yeah. We couldn't have cock in our Bible.
Yeah. There was definitely cock in the King James version of the Bible. Before the cock crows, he denies Jesus three times. It goes on to become, one of Jesus's best disciples. And, he literally is the gatekeeper of heaven. Mm-hmm. And I think with this interesting religious symbolism, you've got Sylvie set up in this position where I don't know that she's technically betrayed Loki. And there's a lot of interesting theological questions over whether Judas had free will because, everything around salvation revolves around Judas selling out Jesus.
Right.
So does he have free will if that's predestined? So there was a lot of parallels there, and it really sets up Sylvie next season, or in whatever that character is in next, to have an either, she could either go one of two ways. She could be, another bad guy. She could be somebody that is an antagonist that is not quite Kang level, but is just somebody who adds like mischief and like chaos to the situation.
Totally.
And I think she may even be that for a short period of time, before then having some sort of a redemption arc, becoming more like Simon Peter, and having that, becoming dedicated, realizing that she fucked up, realizing that she needs to be better as a person and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think she's totally teed up to be able to jump into the variant timelines that are going to be popping up and explore those and see the human collateral of her decision, because I think she throws that at Kang to be like, you're playing a game with real lives, but then she makes the gamble to be like, if I'm wrong, then everyone could potentially die again. No big deal. There's definitely an arc to be had in there of some kind.
It's going to be fascinating to see what they do with her. I do hope that next season they switch to her as a more primary narrative character.
Yeah.
And I also hope next season that we get more female Lokis. I feel like a lot of people have been complaining about the fact that there's only one female Loki, and the big deal that's made out about that. I think for season 1, with everything else that they were throwing in, and with the importance of Sylvie's character to Loki and all of these other things, that it does make sense for there to only be one female character. I can see it as a criticism, and if it persists next season, I'm going to agree that it kind of sucks, but it definitely doesn't feel like they've committed too entirely much to the gender fluidity, which I get. It's Disney. Like, for major mass corporations, things like that have to move slow because people are adverse to change. Look at how fucking Star Wars fans get when you have an Asian actress, or when you have a black guy almost become a Jedi. The audiences can be very reactionary, so the companies have to move slow, which sucks. And I do think that Disney needs to be doing better, and I think that Loki and its success has proved that they can push this envelope further than they're pushing it and still get away with it. And I hope, based on some of the comments that writers have made, like to people tweeting about it, that next season that they commit harder to that.
Yeah.
And next season is really going to be where I, judge it harsher on that. But, there's a lot of great independent queer media out there. Don't get me wrong. I watch a lot of it, and I think a lot of queer people should watch it. But I also believe that it's important to support this type of representation, and to be like, yes, we like the fact that you're giving us this representation, but we want more. Because young queer kids, especially ones that don't have queer parents, they're not going to have access to, Portrait of a Lady on Fire or something like that. They're not going to have access to stuff like that. They're going to have access to things like Luca and Loki.
Right.
And that stuff is important. It's important that we not just be like, this is shitty representation, so I'm not going to watch it. I think it's important that you watch it and you give it a chance and you say, hey, this is inadequate representation because of this. We need better. I think that there's a way to support the representation that they've given us, to encourage them to give us, because if the whole queer community doesn't watch the show or doesn't support the show because they don't support the representation, then they're just going to backpedal. They're going to be like, oh, well, we can't sell this, Yeah. It sucks. And it's not great. But also, fun fact, you don't have to just consume one media company's stuff. Like, I feel that everyone should be a more diverse media consumer and should consume media from all across the spectrum.
Yeah.
But I think that it is important that companies like Disney start pushing the envelope a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. And that as a community, we understand that it's not going to be as fast as we want it to be, but we need to give feedback in a way that is not, oh, your representation is shitty.
Yeah.
Hey, you did this, and this right, but hey, we need more.
The broad strokes version of that, because I mean that is at its core just like a very nuanced thing that you've brought up, and some people are averse to it. To
Yes, I
nuance,
know.
to nuance. I mean, because I totally agree with you, and like the walking that line between like figuring out what is worth bringing up as being inadequate and what's worth
Yeah.
bringing up as like, no, this is just shitty representation masking as good representation, because those two things could happen.
Yeah.
But the broad strokes version of what you're talking about that has already happened in reality is
Yeah.
or happened in mainstream media reality. The trope of the black guy dying first in horror movies. When's the last time you've seen that? It's been a minute. People.
It's been a minute since I've watched a horror movie that wasn't like Asian, to be honest.
Okay, I'll see you there. But in general, as someone who keeps up with horror, representation is doing pretty good in horror movies, and the zeitgeist, the audience outcry of like, what? Yeah, why does the black guy always die first? That trope's died. Like, that's not a thing anymore, and it took time. It took us getting through the 80s and the 90s to get there. But I mean, even as early as a movie like Deep Blue Sea was threw that trope on its head. Now, like you're saying, it was still a little inadequate. LL Cool J was turned into a stereotype throughout the film, but he didn't die in it. And so, just to add to what you're saying, I'm saying I like that there's a historical point that we can look back to and say, yeah, this is something that can eventually happen. And I think your nuanced point of how to make that happen is totally on track.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems is just, I don't think people who are progressive necessarily realize how people that are progressive tend to like change. So for us, change, great, fantastic. But most people are fairly change/risk adverse, and it may not even be that they have a problem with something so much as they don't necessarily understand it. And unfortunately, humans are stupid critters, and we react to ignorance and fear with anger and disgust in many scenarios, and that's not great. And it unfortunately is a natural part of human psychology that is being backed up and supported by our reprehensible education system.
Right.
And unfortunately, because society is so far back in terms of what kids are taught versus what the actual status of the world is and what like gender is and stuff like that is, there's just such a huge gap that needs to be bridged for the average person who is not part of the queer community or is not progressive or who is in a rural area and just does not have exposure to, liberalism or what have you. It's a huge gap. And those people need baby steps along the way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, until society sees major change, we need companies like Disney to provide baby steps like Luca to little gay kids who have a Disney Plus subscription but have otherwise queer-phobic parents,
Yeah, definitely. I love that Luca has snuck into that part of the conversation in the world, that like without being express about anything, but it's all subtext, and the fact that people have picked up on that, it's wonderful.
And it's not, I don't think it's subtext or anything like that. I would say, because people are like, oh, well, you know what, they didn't you're not in a relationship, they didn't kiss, how do you call it gay? I'm like, they were children. That is what an age-appropriate boy crush looks like.
Yeah.
Like, if you have ever been in a situation where you have had a crush on a same-gender friend, you recognize that immediately.
Right.
You've been there. You've been in that moment. You're like, oh, yep, I remember that. When I was like 9 and we used to hang out together and I used to get jealous of the boys, That experience is something that we can pull from, that maybe an audience that is, not queer can't pull from. And I think this is one of those things that makes Sylvie a little bit harder for some people to relate to as well. Like, Sylvie, for me, as somebody who has been through a lot of hurt in my life, is a very relatable character. Her motivations, the reasons she does things, the things that she's done, like, it's hard to watch sometimes because I've done some of the things that she's done and I don't like how it makes me feel watching her do them. I feel like some people who don't have that experience in their life, who haven't been through a lot of trauma, who haven't been in a cycle of abuse where they've been abused and then unfortunately become the abuser, they look at her actions and they don't understand. They don't understand why she would betray Loki because they're like, oh, the boy loves her. It's true love. And God, when you're fucked up in the head, is it way more complicated than that?
Yeah.
Like, even when you're not fucked up in the head, when your motivations are different than your partner, holy hell, is it a problem? But when you're, like, deeply messed up because you've been abused, you've been controlled, you've been manipulated, you've been on the run, you've been on your own for your entire life, like, that fucks with you in ways that are going to make you act in a way that's not necessarily predictable for people that haven't gone through that experience.
Yeah. So based on your experience and then I guess communicating this over to Sylvie, what does recognizing and breaking a cycle look like in a real world context? And then I guess how do you see that translating to Sylvie's narrative arc across the whatever she ends up in next?
So typically, ordinarily, you have to hit rock bottom. And I think that Sylvie is pretty set up for a rock bottom start because you can tell at the end of the final episode that she knows that she's fucked up. Like, she's realized that the timeline is fucked.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that she wanted to believe that that was going to happen, obviously, but it did, and she's aware of it, and I think that the weight of that decision is going to hurt her. I also do believe that she loves Loki, and the weight of hurting him is going to hurt her, especially if, like, she catches word of the fact that, like, he's depressed or something like that, or if they run into each other and, like, she can see the pain in his eyes, or even if she's just remembering the pain in his eyes, like, before, you know, she stabbed Kang, whatever. She is really set up to kind of hit rock bottom and need to rebuild from nothing. What I'm very curious to see is who. I genuinely think next season we might be seeing her and Ravonna working together, because Ravona's motivations and interests have changed, and she is a character who has kind of similar backgrounds of that whole abused to abuser pipeline, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Where, you know, she was like, she did genuinely horrible things to people. And it's going to be really interesting if those two characters can have any type of interaction. I don't think they're going to have like a Mobius Loki type thing. I think they're going to be a lot more heated and contested with one another. I also think if she is in a universe with if the other Mobius and the other B-15 still exist and she is in the universe with them, that could be fascinating. And other Loki is in a universe with these new TVA people.
Yeah.
So it could be interesting to have like her with like the old TVA people and him with like the new TVA people, and just like the way they interact and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think she does need some supportive character. You can fix yourself on your own, but like it's not easy, especially when you got the kind of damage that she has. Like, I feel like she needs a mentor. She needs somebody who can relate to the things that she's gone through. And Loki was kind of that for her. And maybe she'll find another Loki, like classic Loki. I think would be a great pick for her. Although it does seem like they've stuck with him being dead. But there could be another classic Loki.
Yeah, either and both could be true. There's no reason there isn't more than one classic Loki.
Exactly. I there's so many possibilities for her character, and I think the most realistic thing for her is if we're going to see a cycle of her breaking the abuse, she's going to hit rock bottom for a while. She's going to regret the things that she did. She's going to go through the stages of grief, and then it's going to be a slow process of just picking her shit up and getting her shit back together.
You were not wrong when you said it would take some time to emotionally recover from this episode.
Yeah, and like in just ways that
That is lots of heavy shit. Holy shit.
Yeah, for real. Regardless of what direction they go with her character, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. I hope that they stick with a lot of the same writers and a lot of the same actors, a lot of the same characters to focus on for the next season. And I really hope that they continue on a lot of these themes. The first season, it felt so put together. It felt like it was really planned out, like everything was leading to something else. We don't have all of the answers yet, but the answers that we have gotten make sense. The foreshadowing was on point. The character development was on point. Obviously season 2, we're going to be doing this show again, but in the meanwhile, definitely like, comment, and subscribe. Watch our other stuff on screen right now. You'll see all of the other podcasts and stuff that we do. And Seth can tell you a little bit more about those.
Yeah, we do a few different podcasts, some of them around movies, like Film Rescue, where we do hypothetical pitches for redoing movies. Palette Cleanser, which Aaron is the host of, where we talk about just generally good movies that we've really liked and kind of geek out about them for a minute. Very much like this show. Then we have Split the Difference, where we compare movies to their reboots. So What Else is only on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/MontresorMedia. That's a show where we just kind of talk about whatever's popular in the media cycle at the moment and, just kind of shoot the shit on it. And then That Weird Ass Game, where we talk about oddities in video games over the years. You can check out all of those on montresormedia.com. As well as joining our Discord through that page, where you can talk about anything that's on any of those shows, anything that we've talked about on this show, or any of the questions that we've asked, and just, talk to us in general. That we have a community of communicative friends. There's no hierarchy of people within the Discord at this point. If you would follow our social medias as well, they're popping up on screen for Aaron and I and for Montresor Media. I think that's going to do it for this episode, except for our closing question. Aaron, did Loki suck dick this episode?
No, and he better next season.